For a lot of people, this is what perfect seasoning looks like. Jet black, silky smooth and shiny. People post pans like this on social media all the time and everyone gets jealous. It took me 5 rounds of seasoning to get mine looking this sexy. But here's the real question. Was it actually worth it? Today, we're putting it to a test. Let's get cooking!
Hey, I'm PapaMau. I'm here to encourage and help people transition away from non-stick cookware as a way to care for their loved ones and for the environment. In this channel, I show how easy it is to cook with carbon steel and cast iron cookware. I share my experience as an everyday dad cook and as a weekend outdoor warrior. Welcome! Okay, so this is the strata I seasoned in the last video. 5 sessions on the stovetop, layer by layer, using rice bran oil until it went completely jet black. But here's the thing, I seasoned the pan after simmering it on a 50-50 vinegar solution for 5 minutes, following the method shown by my mate, Noah Bristol, on his channel using cast iron pans, which is supposed to make the seasoning adhere much better and last longer. So I had high expectations. Would my jet black seasoning deliver better cooking results and last? For this video, I wanted to test the mechanical aspect of seasoning degradation. That is, what happens with this thick seasoning cooking pH neutral foods. As we know, acidic foods will cause further damage, and I think we should look into that on a separate video. Now, here's our baseline. This pan wasn't perfectly pristine. I cooked an egg on it right after that seasoning video and it stuck. And after washing, the seasoning didn't feel as smooth anymore, leaving what I thought it was a little bit of egg residue on the surface. But after a closer look, I discovered that it was actually damage in the seasoning. Now, was that an isolated occurrence or a premonition of what was coming? So I started cooking, from gently food, gradually moving into more grippy stuff.
Okay, for the first test, we're keeping things simple. 5 fried eggs, cooked exactly the way I cook them at home. I bring the pan to a medium heat, around 120 degrees Celsius, add 1 teaspoon of oil, then cook the eggs one after the other. Let's see what 5 rounds of everyday cooking do to that perfect black seasoning.
But I never imagined that first egg would stick as well. Definitely not a great start. Now think about that. This is the pan with the deepest, blackest seasoning I've ever built. And it gripped really badly. So much so that the egg bits wouldn't come off with a brush. So I very gently went over it with a chainmail, without using soap, just to lift the stubborn bits. And there it was, the first proper damage. You can see it right there. Not good. So I changed the approach. For the next 4 eggs, I switched to what I call the double fat trick. 2 spoons of olive oil and a knob of butter. And this never fails. I'm sure you can cook an egg on an actual road with this technique. Look at that. The eggs float, nothing grabs. I did 4 eggs like that. Then an omelette. My kids were actually quite happy with that.
Subscribe to my dad's YouTube channel.
And when I checked the seasoning under the macro, I found no further damage. So that gave me the first piece of the puzzle. It's not the cooking what is damaging the seasoning, it's the actual sticking. If you have no stickness, there's no damage. So the real question became, what happens when I cook something that is supposed to stick a little bit more? And that was level 2, halloumi cheese. If you are not in Australia, halloumi is a breakfast cheese we pan fry all the time. It's salty, a little bit spongy, and it's delicious. Like avocado and toast with halloumi cheese is just heaven in the morning. This is the thing with halloumi. It leaks all this watery, milky liquid, and that liquid, when it dries, it caramelizes onto the surface. A little bit like bacon does, right? So at the start, we see there's nothing, like no issues. The pan is swimming in that watery stuff, so there's no grabbing, no contact, no drama. But as it dried out and started to brown, it also started to grab into the pan. And when I cleaned it, just using a brush and a bit of soap, you could see it clearly, like more damage. The sugary bits had really gripped on. Same story as the sticky egg, just a little bit worse. Now, there was only one test left. The one at this stage I knew would be the killer. Level 3, bacon. I cooked it gently, no high heat, just like everything we've done today. But at the second I flipped the bacon, I saw black bits on it. And you know what that is, right? Effing seasoning bits. Like, look at this, it's gross. And this is where it really hit me. The damage was everywhere.
It doesn't feel smooth anymore. You can definitely feel the texture. Just with your fingernails.
That deep, gorgeous black seasoning I spent 5 sessions building, well, it was mostly gone. Look at that difference. And this is very interesting. This is a Darto pan that I black seasoned last year without the vinegar simmering process. I've been cooking with it normally at home a few times, nothing crazy. This is not my daily driver. But looking at them, they share the same type of damage. Like normal use versus testing, the results are pretty much the same. The thick seasoning just didn't hold up. After all that, I had a closer look at the surface of the strata. And I wasn't sure what I was seeing because it looked gray, like compared to the Darto that it looks silvery, right? And that's when I remembered the color I got after the acidic bath. It was exactly that gray. So I wanted to be sure if that was actually bare metal or it was still a thin layer of seasoning holding on. To check what was actually going on, I ran a dead simple test. I dropped a few drops of water on the surface and I went to bed. Left her overnight and next morning, guess what? Flash rust. And that tells you everything. Because if there was even a thin layer of seasoning left, it would have protected the steel. Rust like that only forms on bare metal. So the gray I was looking at was the actual pan, stripped right back to raw steel. So there you go. On this occasion, I couldn't prove that the vinegar etching worked on this particular carbon steel pan. And I'm very careful here not to generalize because this is a one-off experience at home, not a science report. There's always the chance that I did something wrong. Was it the acidic simmering time? Maybe 5 minutes was not enough. Was it the oil used? Was it the method? The thickness of the seasoning layers maybe? And here's where you can help by sharing your experience. Have you ever achieved a lasting jet black seasoning color on a polished carbon steel pan? What did you do differently? Was it worth the effort? I would love to know. Now, the results can also mean that carbon steel behaves differently from cast iron. And that would make a lot of sense because they are similar, but the material has different composition. Carbon steel has less carbon than cast iron. I know that sounds confusing, but that's for another video. I had a chat with Noah over the weekend, and I know he's running some tests using carbon steel. So I'm really looking forward to see what he finds. But so far, here are my thoughts. That sexy jet black seasoning everyone chases, well, for actual cooking, I found no value in it. Like, sorry, mate, none. It didn't cook better. It wasn't more non-stick. You could argue that it looks great, and it does. But if it doesn't last, I really struggle to justify it, right? Like, Even with gentle heat, neutral food, and me bathing in it the whole way, it came off really easily. So unless you just want to take pretty pictures for your Instagram and impress your friends, building that thick layer is a waste of your time. I'm sure you have something better to do. Anyway, and honestly, it's not even healthy. Like, I think the only way to get to that color is round after round on the stovetop. That's what I did. It took me 5 sessions. And breathing in that burnt oil smoke, it's just not healthy, right? Or if you do it in the oven, it would take probably a week of thin layers every single time. So who has the time or who has the lungs? This pan cooks great just by using it. A couple of seasoning rounds and off you go. Easy to maintain. The secret, and same for every other carbon steel pan, is to use it often. Don't leave it unused for a month in the cabinet. Just use it. And if looks are important to you, I'm not saying they're not, maybe consider a nitrided pan. Like, they are naturally darker and keep a more even look. There are a few brands doing it already, including my own, and that's it. This is not enough. I thought the vinegar thingy was really a game changer, but maybe it is. But we need to keep exploring. I feel like we're back in square one now. But anyway, I guess that's how we move forward, right? What do we do next? I'll see you in the next one.